Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to this Ocean Life podcast. I'm your host, Josh Peterson. Thanks for being here today. In episode 83, we hear the stories of Mick Slattery around his world of surfing and running SureFire Boards in his home waters of Sydney, Australia. Now today, Mick takes us through his time as a grom, being in the Nipper program, or junior lifeguards, out there, moving from the bodyboard to surfboard, leading to hollow barrels and good waves in the Mentawis. We hear of Mick's first SUP session, way back in 2009 in the early days, that brought him to experimenting with SUP shaping and design, which ultimately brought him to building his SureFire board company that he runs today. Now, Mick talks philosophy behind his board design and the importance of delivering high quality to his customers. We hear stories of Mick interviewing and surfing with some of the biggest legends in the sport, guys like Lenny and Gerry Lopez. And we get a fun tale of him and Laird Hamilton beating up a brand new rental truck in the sand dunes. Now, Mick's SureFire Boards company is up for an award right now from SUP Connect, which is a large online media company around the world of SUP. He is up for Brand of the Year. So I've got a link here. After listening to his podcast, getting a feel for this really good dude, humble, high quality, just a guy of the water. If you feel like it, go throw a vote down to help SureFire Boards become the Brand of the Year. Thanks to everybody for, as always, cutting down the plastic use. Let's keep doing it, picking up some trash and all that. Hope you're getting out, having some fun. And now, let's get into the ocean life of Mick Slattery. All right, so Mick Slattery, welcome to this Ocean Life podcast. It's great to have you, man.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity, Josh.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of fun stuff that I'm interested in hearing from you. It's funny, social media is like this... it's kind of like this double-edged sword. Sometimes you kind of hate you have it because you get so sucked into looking at other people's stuff and you kind of waste some time. But other times you realize you have these connections. And with you, man, it's funny. Like somehow we connected over Facebook. It was like a post or something. And then I said, hey, we should hook up. And then I saw what you're doing. And here we are. After digging in, I was looking at your Facebook. I was like, man, this guy looks familiar, somehow. And it turned out we're connected on Instagram, on my personal Instagram account, which I don't use a lot because I'm always on my Ocean Life one. And I'm like, dude, I've been like following you for a while, so I kind of already knew about you.
No way, didn't know that. That's cool.
That's funny, man. So anyway, so I just saw, dude, you just got back from the Telos Island Surf Resort, man. That looks pretty rad. I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, we did it. It was actually a boat trip. So we'd booked the Gerry boat. There was 8 of us that went, and there was 4 guys with paddle boards and the other 4 were just surfers. I do both, so I sort of swap between the both depending on the conditions. So I took 5 shortboards and 1 paddleboard, and we decided there was a big west swell coming, so we decided to head up to the Telos. A couple of guys had been up there before. I never had. And, really good. I like exploring, surfing new breaks. So, we ended up surfing 17 different breaks in the 10 days, and I'd only surfed 3 of them before. So, because we ended up back in the Ments for the last 3 days because the swell just kept dropping, and so we made the dash back down to pick up some swell. But amazing spot, especially for stand up. Really? It's not as crowded. The waves are a little bit softer, because it gradually gets shallow, so the waves don't have as much punch as the Ments, and obviously you don't get so many frothers out there. You sort of get the older crew, and there's not that many land camps there either. So we had an amazing surf guide who did everything in his power to get us uncrowded waves. And if we ever did rock up to where there was another boat, he'd get on the blower to the other surf guide and they'd have a quick chat, and he would say, we only just got out. So our guide would say, look, give them an hour and a half, 2 hours, let them have their fill, and then we'll jump in and they'll get out. And so just worked really well. Really recommend cool. The Telos.
Yeah, man. I've been scoping it out, and I just kind of randomly, they pop up like ads to go out there, and I've just been looking, and then I saw your trip, and I had to hear about it. And so what was the name of the boat again you guys took?
Gerry.
Gerry.
Pretty good boat, but it's really, it comes down to your surf guide. You know, if your surf guide's a bit lazy, there was when we were at Burger World, we when we were back in the Mentawis, we were crisscrossing all over the place trying to find the best waves, and we're talking to a couple of guys in the surf, and they'd been sitting there for 3 days, and the surf guide and the captain were just like, nah, this is the best waves here, and it's like, nah, you know, you can score some other place. So yeah, it really depends on who you get.
Yeah, man, solid. And so as you mentioned, you cross train, man. So you cross surf, so to speak. I mean, you're on pro normal, regular surfing, and then you're also SUP surfing. And so when you're out there, were you doing both?
Yeah, I started. I was pretty big the first day, so I was just shortboarding, and then the afternoon we're at a place called Monkeys, and that was just super fun for paddleboarding. So I jumped on the paddleboard and had a few sessions over the next couple of days. But we're at a break called Kindergartens, I think, and it was quite a solid wave, and some sets of the day came through. I paddled for the first one and missed it. Swung around and just saw bombs coming towards me, and scratched over the first two, and then the third one just annihilated, like basically about to break on my head. So I tried to duck dive. I went down to prone, tried to duck dive my paddleboard, and had no chance.
Got clipped, huh?
Yeah, went over the falls and just slightly creased the board, but it put it out of action for the rest of the trip. It's an easy repair. But, I didn't want to risk snapping it totally in two, so unfortunately I just had to shortboard the rest of the time, but that was fine. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, man. And I mean, that's kind of your roots, right? I mean, coming to where you are today, back from, prone surfing way back in the day. So it's kind of dive in there a little bit, because I'd love to kind of hear you, because what's really interesting to me about you in many different regards is you didn't make a transition to SUP. You made an adoption of SUP with your regular prone surfing. And that, at least in my area in Santa Cruz and a lot of folks, I was actually kind of thinking there's not a lot of people I know who kind of excel at both. And so I'm really curious. So start back with your roots of surfing back in the day and everything, because you got a really rich history of surfing. So rewind maybe all the way, man. So where you grew up.
Yeah, sweet.
What breaks were you surfing? What were you doing and all that?
Yeah, cool. Just grew up in Sydney, probably about 20 minutes from the beach, and did the Nippers, which is the junior life savers. So did that as a kid, and used to bodyboard. I used to surf on holidays down the coast, but just like generally on weekends I would bodyboard up until probably 12 or 13. So I was a bit of a late adopter to surfing, but picked that up pretty quick and just went from there. So I'm sort of in between where I live now. I'm in between sort of Cronulla and the South Coast. So I would sort of go between the both, depending on the swell. And so it's just, and we've got a national park right near us as well. Wow. So I've got so many options. There's amazing reef breaks out of Cronulla, and then amazing reefs and coves down the coast. But I guess I was lucky in another sense that one of my mates had a little tinny, and we both hated crowds. So even as a 13, 14-year-old, we'd actually go out the heads of Botany Bay and search for uncrowded waves among the cliffs and that. So and we used to just push one another. He was crazier than I was, and we used to just push one another and surf crazier and crazier waves. So I'm not scared of reefs and anything like that. It was just, we sort of grew up on it. So
and then so did you kind of make a competitive career out of it? Were you surfing competitively?
No, I'm not that good. We just I didn't really even do any competitions in surfing. It wasn't until I got into stand-up that I started doing the competitions. So that was a big learning curve for me, trying to work out how to competition surf, because you just want to go out there and bust everything you can, and it's not the smartest when you're in a competition, that's for sure. So
that's right. You got to figure out your strategy and everything. Very different than just kind of going out having a surf for fun and, like you said, trying to get any wave that comes your way. But I also saw like reason why I asked about the competition thing because I mean just looking at some of the trips, I think there's like some shots of you in the Mentawis from I don't know 2010, man. And you're just getting absolutely barreled and everything. So it looks like you've been doing some traveling and just spent a lot of time around at least in that area in Indo and everything, chasing waves too.
Yeah, traveled a lot through Indonesia throughout the years. And yeah, just I love getting barreled. It's one of the, I mean, that's the ultimate, isn't it? So yeah, big hollow waves is what I love to surf. And yeah, as I said, we've got a lot of breaks around where I live that are nice and hollow. So yeah, and obviously that. So I got into stand up probably around 2009, and that was we had a summer of tiny waves, and I'd been wanting to get into it for a few years, but they weren't really available in Australia. There was a few guys around selling them, but not really. Yeah. And yeah, I basically just wanted to. I just love getting out there. I don't mind if I body surf or ride a longboard or a shortboard or a twinny. I want to be on the correct equipment for what's going to give me the most fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was the reason I got into it.
Right.
But quickly realised that they weren't really designed for surfing. They were just big and heavy and just, I still remember my first attempt at a floater. It was only probably a knee-high wave, and I went up and looked down and went, nah, just flicked the board out and, so then basically just used all my shortboard shaping knowledge to start shaping and designing my own. And
yeah, so
sort of took off.
Yeah, awesome, man. So then as a kid and stuff, or even maybe as a young adult, so you were already shaping your own boards. Is that just kind of for fun, or were you kind of making a little bit of a business out of shaping?
Mostly just for fun. I was shaping for mates and stuff like that, but I'd always hung around shapers, and I always wanted to shape, but everyone said there's no money in it, which is probably correct. But it's I just wanted to learn, and at the time, none of the shapers were actually giving me the boards I wanted. So you just sort of know. Well, I just sort of knew what boards, and I'd be like, the nose isn't wide enough. You need to increase the thickness from the center up to the nose, and they're like, no, that's never in the water. I'm like, yeah, that's what I know that's what I need for my style of surfing. And
yeah.
It wasn't until I started shaping my own, and I'm like, you dial it in, and once you start riding your own boards, it's you'll never get it back. So.
Yeah. So how was that, man? So you basically find SUP, you have a flat spell. The waves are small. You jump on a big tanker board which back in 2009, that's pretty much like you mentioned. That's what they were, right? And then got a little bit, you wanted something more, so you started making your own. So how was that sort of first? And it's fun to talk to any shaper who starts to shape new craft. Like I have friends who shape pro and paddle boards, who've done surfboards. It's different, right? It's still a craft in the water, but there's a different design. And same with the SUP from surfing. It's similar, but the lines are different. It's wider, thicker, longer, and it's just a different kind of dimensional, thing. So how was did you go through a few different designs or shapes until you got something that kind of worked for you?
Yeah, definitely. The first couple I made obviously went a lot better than anything else. But a lot of guys were saying, oh, you should just blow up a surfboard. But I knew, the volume distribution's totally different because you're standing on it and you've got to balance. And so they sort of, they came down in refinement. So to start with, I shaped a 9.6 and then dropped down to an 8.8 and then just kept refining them from there and working on all the rockers. And so the rocker sort of changed from a single stage rocker to a 3-stage rocker, which is what a lot of my boards are that are sort of under the 9 foot. Just a bit more flatter through the center, so a bit more paddle speed, and also on fatter sections of the waves, and then sort of tweak up at either end. But I always were using like a single concave through to a V double. All the brands that were on the market at the time were sort of running the V from the tail all the way up through the center, and it just made them really unstable, and it didn't make sense to me. So yeah, I just started doing my own thing and then experimenting with a heap of different materials, because I wanted them to be, you know, light, strong, but also flex. And a lot of brands were doing, you know, the brushed carbon and stuff,
right,
you know, around 2013, 2014. But to me, they were too stiff. They surf like an ironing board. So I sort of hooked up with a fiberglass manufacturer that does a lot of composite materials, and they were throwing me sort of samples of different stuff and leftovers, and so I'd glass a bunch of boards in them, and you know, they'd be light and strong, but they wouldn't flex enough. And so we went through a whole bunch of different materials trying to find the right layups and all that. So yeah, I use a lot of a Negra now. I just find that really has a lot of kinetic flex and that pop. So once you sort of go through a turn, the whole board will flex through the center. I use a carbon tape as a stringer. I don't actually use stringers in them.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, you just get this beautiful flex that, you know, throws you through the turn, and they just feel so alive. And Negra actually, the other characteristic is it's almost like a dampener. So where carbon and other harder materials, once there's a bit of chatter on the face, they sort of chatter across. The Negra sort of, I don't know how it does it, but it counteracts that, and it's a lot smoother as well. So it's really, really hard to work with. Took a few years to actually work out how to do it properly. But yeah, we're getting some beautiful, light, strong flex boards. So it's been good.
Yeah, solid, man. Yeah, you know, mentioning like the way you mentioned that, I was just this morning as I was drinking my coffee, getting ready to chat, I was just scanning through Facebook on the SureFire Boards Facebook page, and we'll talk about the brand and everything. But there was, I don't know, a small wave, and I think one of your guys was like maybe a 2-3 foot wave, kind of sloppy, you know, honestly. It's like kind of a little wind swell, but it was on a 10-foot board you mentioned in the post. But this guy riding it was absolutely snapping this board, and it was remarkable. You know, it's a 10-foot board, and the way he was turning it so quick, you know, and some guys can just do that because they surf just really strong, and this guy looked like a strong surfer, but you could tell that board he was flicking it basically. You don't really say somebody flicks a 10-foot board, but that's kind of what he was doing, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that it's probably the Jayhawk you're talking about, which is
that's it.
A really, really refined board with a pretty extreme rocker actually, but it goes insane. But yeah, it was a white board with black stripes maybe. I'm not sure, but
it was
anyway,
I think it was.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, it's yeah, the material just makes such a difference, and yeah, all my designs yeah, they're quite lively, and the names sort of represent what they do. So we've got like the Vandal, which I sort of say, you know, you can write your name all over the wave, and we've got the Flick Knife and the Slayer, and you know, so they're all very aggressive sort of names that fit with the style of surfing for those boards.
Yeah. So you start messing around kind of in your garage, making an SUP that will work for you. At some point, how'd you make that transition to like, I think I might build a company out of this, and then take us through that whole process? I mean, what was that like?
Yeah, it was pretty much in 2009 we set it up. We just kept getting orders for boards, and so I was shaping them, and so then I was like, okay, now we need, you know, I was using other guys' shaping bays, and then a lot of people wanted, you know, I was sort of the go-to guy, and doing a custom in Australia is just too expensive for an entry-level board.
Yeah.
So, you know, a lot of guys were going, I want to get an SUP, and so everyone's going, go see Slats, but obviously they couldn't afford a custom. So we went and got some samples done overseas, and got those and sold them on, and more people wanted them. So we got, you know, another lot of boards, and then I ended up going overseas and checking out probably 20 or 30 factories, and found an Australian-owned factory with run by a Hawaiian shaper glasser that I got on really well with. So I've been basically working with him ever since, and just brought more and more in, got them into retailers, and just built it from there.
That's great, man. So what were you doing like for work prior to building SureFire?
Project manager.
Got it.
So yeah.
That's cool, because I mean, you had that sort of organizational like approach, right? I mean, building the company's hard. It's like, and it's that's a cool blend, because like you have the shaping skills, the knowledge of riding the craft, which is like, you know, a big part of it. But there's a lot of really good shapers and people who can make things that kind of struggle with the other side of it, which is, geez, how do I like organize to a point where I could actually pump these things out, you know, and get them into stores and actually build a business. So you're kind of already teed up, man, and ready to go.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It was good for the organization, that's for sure, but had to learn sales pretty quick.
Yeah,
and still learning that side of the business. It's pretty hard.
I bet, man. So you create SureFire boards. You start with the SUP, but now, I mean, at what point did you also then start adding surfboards to that line? And now I've also just saw, man, a foil board in there. So how did you're continuing to evolve sort of your line of boards?
Yeah, well, the surfboards came at the same time. So I'd already done a whole line of surfboards that I was sort of shaping. And so, yeah, we just brought those in at the same time. I've never done surfboard manufacturing overseas. It's always just customs in Australia. So, yeah, I think I've got 11 models, which, you know, if I was to go get 5 different sizes of each, you know, of 11 different models, it's just too much.
Oh, yeah.
So, and you know, someone will say, oh, you've got a 5.6, I wanted a 5.5, or you know what I mean. So, custom surfboards just make a lot more sense. Mm-hmm. And you can do them at a quite reasonable price in Australia. So that was fine. With the foil boarding, we got into that pretty early. We actually designed with a Hawaiian guy a bunch of actual foils, and we got them. Yeah, we've been doing that for a year and a half now. We haven't brought them to market yet. We've tested, like, we'll get the prototypes made, and they're all carbon, so they're not aluminium shafts or anything, or fuselages. It's just 100% carbon. But I like everything to be 100% before I bring it to market. Cool. So we've tested them, and they go, like, the feedback is they go good, but you know, the sections where they join might not be as, you know, as strong as I want, or so the first foil we did was probably a little bit advanced. It was the guys that were sort of doing it with were very good at foiling, but the entry guys, they were struggling a bit. It was just too advanced for them. So you know, there's really no point bringing that out. You know, so then we've gone back to the drawing board, and we're doing our 3rd prototype at the moment. So
that's cool, man. So in your area, what is foiling looking like? I mean, are a lot of guys and gals getting on foil boards? Is it slowly starting, or what's it like?
Yeah, it's slow.
You're at?
There's a big scene over northern beaches of Sydney. Yeah, and down south, it's starting to take off. But it's still, you still get guys like paddling out into a crowded lineup trying it, and it's just
doesn't work.
You know, it doesn't work. So there's still a lot of education to, you know, that people need to get. Yeah, but it is definitely taken off a lot more.
Yeah, it's funny, man. The education thing. It's you said it really well, and that's exactly what we're going through here in Santa Cruz, which is, I mean, it's actually really fascinating thing to watch, because here there's a lot of kelp in the water, and so there's a lot of waves, there's a lot of kelp, and so it's pretty limited spots where you can actually foil without driving, you know, 45 minutes. And if you're in town, you just want to go 2 minutes down the road. So there's a couple spots. One's just down the street from me, and it's sand, and it's perfect. But it's been really, really fascinating, honestly. In the last, 18 months to see like one person foiling, and everybody's like, whoa, what is that? Kind of tripping out on it.
Yeah.
To now, it's a longboard break. It's a family spot. You know, we all have those. And now somebody paddles out on a foil and everybody bristles, you know, and the reason there's been this transition where there was times when there were 6 guys. And I was one of those. Absolutely. You know, because and being cautious and cool, staying on the shoulder, staying away, because my kids are surfing too. Don't want to hit anybody. But back to the education piece, it is really interesting because you've been surfing maybe your whole life. You start foiling and you assume you can just foil like you surf, which is, hey, I'm going to sit in the pack, I'm going to get my waves. It's actually not the way it works because those
100%
things are dangerous, you know? So that education piece, man, there's been a lot of issues in the water, a lot of words, a lot of just basically people telling other guys to leave. And the crowd is, which is kind of neat to see. It's kind of self-corrected, you know. So now it's not, you don't have to worry about the kids and foils getting ran over because they're not out there. So now it's like, which is cool. It's a surfing spot, you know. But it is, I think that's how it works in a lot of places. That education has to happen.
Yeah, and also with SUP surfing too. We I'm not sure what it was like over there, but you know, we'd get a lot of the older crew that may not have ever surfed that can realize they can now get out into the surf.
Yep.
So they'd just paddle around everyone and take every set wave and just mow through people. So again, education's key there too, you know. So
yeah. So how about then your own? Are you foiling too a little bit here and there?
Yeah. Get out when I get the chance. Got a mate with a jet ski we tow in with, and we've been sort of trying to tow some of the outer reefs and that just to get away from everyone when it's small. Still don't want to do it when it's big yet, but it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, nice, man. So then kind of back to SureFire as a brand. I mean, there's a lot of big things happening right now for you. I mean, you basically been nominated for Brand of the Year with SUP Connect.
That is insane. It is just.
So how's that happen? Like, how did that come down?
It's just blowing my mind, really. It was nearly going to happen last year. So I love making videos and sharing content and writing articles and taking photos at events and all that. So I was actually doing videos and taking a lot of photos at last year's state and Australian titles.
Yeah.
And so I actually wrote up a couple of articles, which I have been doing for years anyway, and I send them to the magazines and all that. Unfortunately, they can't print anything that if you're not a advertiser, so they all get sort of knocked back, but I just love sharing it. And so just basically through video content and talking to the magazines over the years, and I said, oh, what's this, this SUP Brand of the Year? And they said, oh, you've just missed the cut. We would have put you in. I was like, oh, bugger. So they said, oh, well, next year, which is this year, they said, we'll throw you in. And I think they forgot again. And then about 2 weeks into it, they were like, we'll throw your nomination in. So, I'd sort of forgotten about it as well. So it was unreal to get that email saying we've been nominated.
Yeah.
And we're actually at the moment coming third. I think there's 29 brands in it.
Yeah.
I just basically put it on Facebook and Instagram, and it's gone pretty nuts. Everyone's supporting it. So, absolutely stoked.
That's awesome. I was checking it out yesterday. It's a long list and some like heavyweight names. I mean, like big names that have been around for a long time, you know, and you're like, I was noticing the votes you have, man, you're right there. You know, that's cool. I'm going to plug it right now. So everybody listening, I'll put a link in the show notes. And if not, and if you don't see the show notes, go to the SureFire Facebook page, and then you'll see a link for the SUP Connect Brand of the Year, and go throw a vote down.
Yeah, right, man, that'd be awesome. Yeah, right now.
Yeah, but kind of, and that's cool, man. That'd be insane to get that, but just to be recognized, you know, I think that's just like you mentioned, that's insane to itself, and just the awareness that people will have of the boards you're making, just what you're trying to do, which is put people on the right craft for, you know, what they're doing. But I guess, you know, the other part is I was thinking about, like, you've been part of SUPs. You mentioned you first saw it in 2009. You started a brand almost 10 years ago now. I mean, you've seen the industry do some crazy stuff, right? I mean, it just got
Yeah.
massive and then it contracted and brands came and they went and there was prize money and there's not. I mean, it's a crazy thing to kind of watch. And I'm not steeped in it. I've just, interacted with enough brands here in California, a little bit in Hawaii to kind of have watched it. But I mean, how are you as a brand kind of working through like the flooding of really cheap boards in the market and just all the crazy up and down of the industry?
Yeah, well, it's, I guess, because, we're just a small family company that we've been able to retract and, tighten the belt and go out and react to the market and do different things quite quickly. I won't lie, the influx of cheap boards did really affect us, and I could go to a cheap factory and use cheap materials and bring out a cheap board too, but I'm not interested in that. I want my boards to last. All the materials we use are top notch. Our quality's amazing, and I don't want a board to fall apart. That's just so I just went the other way and concentrated on customs and making sure the materials were good. And a lot of shops then started asking for consignment, and they wanted us to bankroll everything and all that.
Yeah.
And I'm just not interested in that. It's like, if you want my products, you want them. If you're not, I'm not going to stick 15 boards in there and then you go bankrupt and I lose. You know what I mean? So I guess being small enough to be able to cope with all that's been a blessing. If you were too big, and that's always been a concern of mine, is growing too big too quick. We've had, even 4 years ago, we had interest from overseas trying to get us to have distributors over there and all that. And, I didn't do it because I still wanted to sleep at night.
Yeah.
So we've just been very mindful of growing it slowly, and it's worked. People know us around the world, and it's almost more exclusive now that we haven't just flooded the market with a bunch of boards. So
that's a great approach. Yeah, that's a cool approach, man. And I think what I mean, I don't know much, but my gut call after watching just kind of the evolution of both the SUP industry, but also the surf industry, which is the same thing. There's cheap boards you can buy off the shelf from a factory and they'll break in 8 months. But it's like, I think people are, and while there will always be a market for really cheap stuff, that's never going to go away. It does feel like as people maybe they start with the cheap stuff because they're new to the sport. So you want to get in kind of cheap. And then once you grow, if you continue to be in that sport, and I think surfing and SUP is the same, as you start to realize the quality and then also just the performance factor of your gear. And you realize, oh geez, you know what? There's better stuff out there. It's a little bit more of an investment, but when you see things flooded the market, like you're saying, it kind of has, this is my perspective, this kind of perception that it's cheap because it's everywhere, and it probably is, and so I do see, it feels like more people are kind of gravitating back towards the more niche, not mom and pop, but family run, small but semi-exclusive type of stuff, because they know it's quality, it'll last them longer.
Well, that's what we've found, and my approach has always been, I'll let them go get a cheap board to start with. I'll be their second or third board.
Yeah, that's right. Right.
And then they sort of know what they want then, and they actually realize, the benefits of having the right board. And, most people that buy one that are into the surfing will come back, buy 2, 3, they'll buy a 10-foot Jayhawk, and they'll buy they generally start on a Degenerate, which is a 32 wide. That gets them in there, and then, they progress down. So I'm finding the loyalty is really strong with SureFire, which is great.
Yeah, man, that's cool. And that's a testament to, the quality of your work and the performance, and it keeps people happy, and just, probably there's an element of just, service too, So then for you yourself, Mick, I mean, inspirations that you may have in the SUP world whether it's your own running your company or just your own surfing or paddling? I mean, who are the folks out there that you kind of get inspired by in the SUP world?
I love competing, and the guys I'm inspired by for SUP surfing are pretty much the local guys.
Yeah.
Kai Bates, Harry Maskell, Justin Holland, James Casey. I compete against these guys, and it blows my mind what they can do on a wave.
Yeah.
Video doesn't really do justice. So, and there's not that many, good SUP surfing videos out there.
Right.
So, obviously guys like Lenny, Mo Freitas, Laird, there's a Brazilian guy, Luis Diniz, really love. He's really explosive. Love watching him, and Anthony Maltese from the States. So there is guys that I love watching if they release videos, but yeah, there's not that much out there. So generally I get inspired by some of the local rippers.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great, man. It's fun. It's fun to have a community around you in your neck of the woods with people pushing it that you can be inspired by. It's like when you're in an area like that, like where you are, and Santa Cruz is the same. There's a lot of innovation, progression, and a lot of different sports in the water. You're pretty lucky to have that, for sure.
Yeah.
So then, you mentioned, part of what you also like to do is like you said, create content, and video and long form, like text and stuff like that. And you mentioned you've had the opportunity to interact with some absolute heavyweight legends in the world, guys like Gerry Lopez, Lenny, Laird Hamilton, Dave Kalama. Like, you've been with these guys, you've been in the water with them. So talk about that. I mean, how did you get a chance to interact with these guys? What did you guys do? And I know you gotta tell the story about thrashing cars in the sand dunes with Laird too. I want to hear that one.
Yeah, well, most of the guys, when they come out, obviously, because I'm in the industry, you hear about it and get the invite. So, when Gerry Lopez came out, spent probably half a day with him and went paddling, and just such a down-to-earth, humble guy. Chuck Patterson, when Lenny came out. So surf with all those guys. Dave Kalama. I used to run a website called Surf for Sanity, which I used to do. It's probably still live, but I haven't touched it for about 5-6 years. But it was a lot of interviews with legends of the sport and videos, and I used to share a lot of content, and cool. that went really good back about 2010, but it was right when SureFire was taken off, and I just didn't have time to do both, so I sort of let that slip. But and Laird, a mate of mine was the Australian distributor, but he was on the west coast of Australia, and because I'm on the east coast, he sort of said, do you mind being the unofficial East Coast distributor?
Yeah.
So, I used to store all the boards at my factory and distribute them out to all the shops and all that. And, so he brought Laird out, and I was pretty much the unofficial chaperone. So pick him up at the airport and, take him to all the media events and take him surfing. And so we basically had a media company following us around as well. So we drove up the coast to Trial Bay, which is a couple of hours up the coast, for the state titles for the SUP surfing. And so Laird was going to do some media events there. So, but he wanted to drive. So we went and picked up the car, and it had 18 kilometres on the odometer. So brand new Toyota Kluger 4-wheel drive. And so, man, that guy's off tap. He is the funniest guy. He is like, I'd always seen interviews with him, and he just seems so intense, And I'd pick him up at the airport. He's like, "What are we gonna do? Is it fun? What are we doing?" He was just pumped, And we flew up the coast, and then the media company said, "Oh, there's this cool wreck that we'll get you guys to surf. We'll get the drones up, but to get there, you had to drive over these massive sand dunes that go for kilometres and kilometres." So Laird just put his foot down and was doing like airs over, he was launching this car, launching it, and it was like nose diving into the sand. It was nearly ripping off the front guards, and where they're going, we're not getting the money back.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was hilarious time. Yeah, it was good. It's good. And so yeah, basically spent a whole week with Laird. Got to know him really well. So
yeah, man, that's cool. That's way cool. It's just neat to interact with people who, like you mentioned, like Gerry Lopez, who's just kind of like the guru, and the other guys like you mentioned a bunch, Chuck Patterson, et cetera, just push it in the water. It's just to hear their stories and just see how they actually see them like in the water. It's pretty unique. That's one of my favorite things about going on trips and just mixing up who I'm in the water with is, well, you have your core crew and you love surfing with them and you recognize their style from like a mile away. It's really quite cool to see other styles, other ways people who are like top notch, best in the world almost, approach waves and approach certain parts of the wave, et cetera. It's just so neat to see that.
Oh, totally. And Chuck, like, it was, he's a big unit.
Yeah.
He was throwing, it was small waves too, and he was throwing that board around. It was, very impressive to watch.
Oh man, I bet. So so that's another neat part of your history, man, you'll take with you. So now kind of not fast forward, but now kind of like today, I mean, there's some other neat things you're into while you're running a company. You are having some fun yourself in the water. You're also getting your groms, man. You got a family, you got some kids, and you guys looks like, looking at, of course, back to social media, you're doing some pretty fun stuff, So talk about that, man, your family and how old your kids are and what you guys are doing in the water.
Yeah, we've got 3 kids. Got a 14, an 11, and a 9-year-old. So yeah, we just love going to the beach, love surfing. We dive too, so there's a really cool spot not far from us, about an hour's drive down the coast, and all the grey nurse sharks. It's a nursery for them. And they all just hang there. So yeah, we'll dive down and swim with the sharks, and so the kids are very accustomed to being in the water and even being around sharks and stuff like that. So yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, man. And so is there a nipper program near you guys that the kids do?
Yeah. So they all do nippers. My oldest has graduated to an actual junior lifeguard now. So nippers sort of cuts out around 14. So yeah, he now does patrols and all that. So
nice.
It's good.
Yeah. So do they bug you to make them new strange, different boards for them to ride on?
Well, I actually made my daughter, who's 11, made her shape one herself. So
cool.
So she's pumped. She wanted a specific board, so I sort of designed it with her and then shaped it with her and got a glass, and then she did all the artwork on it and all that. So she loves doing that. She wants to be a marine biologist and
nice.
study sharks and all that, but she's right into art and right into surfing, and she does a lot of videos too. So yeah, it's cool.
Sweet, man.
It's good
bringing her on as like your social media, videographer and maybe part-time shaper and stuff. Get the kids to work.
Yeah, well, I actually get my oldest son to do some videoing from time to time too. So yeah, we keep it all in the family.
Yeah, that's cool, man. It's really neat you guys have that where, because it's, at that age, especially, and I got some teenage kids, I know it's like, they start to get interested in other stuff, but it's like you got to maintain relevance with them and do some stuff they're interested in. And if you could do stuff that you're interested in too, the beach or your company and making boards, and it's a way for you all to spend more time together, because it's like, it's just, it's hard to find. And so that's cool. You're able to do that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's definitely, I'm just glad everyone loves the ocean. That's an easy one, really.
Yeah, I know. It's a great one too. So then this year, so we got, when will the votes be counted, so to speak, for the SUP Connect brand of the year? Is that coming pretty soon?
It says, I don't actually know the date, but on the website it says winners announced early August. So I would imagine I'd probably close voting maybe the end of July.
Nice. So we'll put a link to that for sure, and hope that it'd be rad to see you come out on top, man. So beyond that, I mean, are there any other kind of big things coming? Any family trips, or just with the brand itself? Anything big plans you got for us this year?
Off to Fiji at the end of August. So
Nice.
yeah, just doing a bit of a surf trip with my wife. And yeah, for the company, I've got a lot of interesting things happening. I actually designed for other brands as well. So I've designed a range of boards, SUP boards for a Hawaiian brand, and actually shape boards for a bunch of team riders for other brands as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've got interest from a bunch of overseas countries: Italy, Taiwan, Hawaii. So we're just chasing up those leads at the moment, and again, not going out too hard, just making sure everything, everything's going to be good. And yeah, maybe, if everything takes off, might look for an investor or something like that. But
Cool.
again, it's I'm very mindful about growing too quick. So
Yeah.
but I mean, everything's set up.
Man.
We've got the right manufacturing, we've got the right distribution, we've got everything's set up, ready to go. But it just has to be right.
Yeah, man. No, that's awesome, man. I mean, good for you. Slow and steady and cautious. That's cool. That's why you're here today, crushing it, when a lot of others people probably started the same time you did and have, gone by the wayside, man. So I wish you the best of luck with all that, man.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. So Mick, Dan, thanks for being on today and taking your time. I know you're busy, and it's been a lot of fun catching up. And it's funny. I say this every time I speak to somebody, and it's like I swear I mean it. And it's like I've been like Australia is like me being loving the water and doing all the different things, and still haven't been there. And I have all these different, like your spot where you're at. It's like there's a whole crew of people who I now know from the podcast and from days of paddling. And it's like, man, I swear I'm gonna get out there one day. When I do, man, if you got a board I could ride or come, I'd love to have a beer or surf with you, man. It'd be great.
Anytime, man. The door's always open.
Thanks, man. All right, Mick. Well, hey, thanks again, man, and good luck with Brand of the Year voting. We're going to put everybody listening, go hit it up right now if it's still open when you hear this. And man, would like to see nothing but you crushing that one, man. So good luck.
Awesome, man. Appreciate it so much. Thank you.
All right. Cheers. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for listening to another podcast episode. Can't do it without you. And so thrilled to have you here supporting myself and the podcast and all the guests continually. Always appreciate a positive rating on your podcast app, whether it be Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, you name it. Just helps grow the podcast and spread awareness. So thanks for that. And then any social media mentions, always super appreciative. And if you know somebody who you think would be great to have on the podcast to share about their ocean life, please hit me up. I'd love to chat with them. Or if you think you'd like to, let me know. Email is josh@thisoceanlife.tv. All right. Thanks, guys.